esteemed professors, scholars, and my dear students. I'm Anjitha MC, PhD scholar, Department of Sociology, Rajiv Gandhi National Institute of Youth Development, Sriperumbudur, India, an institute of national importance, under the guidance of Dr. Sharmistha Bhattacharjee, Associate Professor and Head, Department of Sociology, Rajiv Gandhi National Institute of Youth Development, Sriperumbudur, Tamil Nadu, India. Today, I'm going to present on the topic Understanding Climate Vulnerability, Infrastructure Gaps, and Social Support in Coastal Fishing Communities, a preliminary fact study from Thiruvananthapuram, India. So, I'm going to discuss on the following subtopics that I will be mainly discussing on the theoretical framework, research objectives, research methodology, data interpretation and analysis, major findings, discussion, and conclusion. A significant portion of fishermen income comes from natural resources whose production and distribution are known to be impacted by climate dynamics. Coastal fishermen are prone to stress and shocks resulting from climate change parameters including sea level rise, cyclones, erosions, flood, etc. The productivity of coastal ecosystem, biodiversity, fish stocks, and fish migration pathways are all impacted by climate change in coastal seas. The key climate change indicators that affect fishing communities' ability to sustain themselves are rising sea levels, acidification, heavy rainfall, storms, erosion, flooding, saltwater intrusion, cyclone, El Nino, and drought. While various government schemes aim to enhance resilience, there remains a critical knowledge gap in understanding how infrastructure access and climate stressors collectively influence the quality of life of these fishing communities. This study addressed that gap by employing a data-driven approach using primary data collected through both structured questionnaire and interview schedules. Given shared concern about poverty, food security, improved livelihoods, welfare and environmental sustainability, social protection, and the fishing industry are closely intertwined. So, the SDG 14, that is life below water, shows how important it is to protect the coastal and marine areas for the betterment of fishing community. Over 1 million fishermen live in 222 coastal villages distributed throughout the 9 of the state's 14 districts along Kerala's 590-kilometer coastline. Approximately 50,000 vendors in the state making a living from activities related to fishing. Climate change and extreme weather are having a significant negative impact on Kerala's fishing industry, resulting in fewer fishing days, lower catch, and decreased profitability. The CMFRI has released research that emphasize the increasing difficulties that fishermen encounter, such as the susceptibility of fishing nets and gear because of insufficient protective infrastructure. This is the overall idea of the fisherman in Trivandrum. The state of Kerala in the southwest of India has 9 coastal districts. According to CMFRI, there are 222 marine fishing villages, with the maximum number is in Thiruvananthapuram. Thiruvananthapuram has the highest percentage of fishermen engaging in fishing-related activities, while the district is home to the bulk of those who are active in fish marketing. Small-scale fisheries, which generate a significant portion of the state's revenue, are the foundation of the majority of fishing communities in the district. Major share, that is 84% of those who are engaged in marketing of fish belong to Thiruvananthapuram. The review of literature that I have been consolidated into 4 subcategories that based on climate vulnerability in coastal communities, livelihood dependence and socio-economic challenges of fishing communities, infrastructure gaps and resilience in coastal settlement, and social support system and community resilience. Theoretical framework. Martin Heidegger's phenomenological approach. Martin Heidegger's interpretative phenomenology, also known as hermeneutic phenomenology, is a philosophical approach that focuses on understanding human existence, that is Dasein, through lived experience and interpretation. This theory offers a profound framework for studying communities by focusing on lived experience of individuals within their social and existential context. His methodology is rooted in key concepts such as Dasein, being in the world, and the hermeneutical process of interpretation. This is a pictorial representation of the theoretical framework of Martin Heidegger's, that is shared meaning, intersubjectivity, and reflectivity. Methodology. The major objectives of the paper is to identify and explore the underlying dimensions of climate stress, infrastructure access, and social support experienced by coastal fishing communities in Kerala. Second, to use exploratory factor analysis to determine how key environmental and social challenges group into latent construct affecting community well-being. To understand the role of perceived social support as a distinct factor in reducing the negative effect of climate and infrastructure problems on people's lives. Materials and methods. Multi-stage sampling is used for conducting this study as there are 42 fishing villages in Thiruvananthapuram district. Anjitha fishing village is selected for the study using multiple stage sampling by considering the fact that the village has the highest number of marine fishers and most of them are dependent on fishing in Thiruvananthapuram district. Data collection and sample. Primary data were collected using both structured and unstructured questionnaire developed in bilingual format, that is Malayalam and English, incorporating socio-demographic details, household infrastructure, climate-related stressors, and access to social support system. The survey included mainly 3 domains. First, perceived climate-related challenges, that is pollution, erosion, availability of basic infrastructure, that is toilet, electricity, facility, level of social support, example, insurance, government aid. The study focused on 3 key variables derived from the questionnaire. Is perceived severity of climate stress, access to basic infrastructure, access to social support services. These are the variables in the study. Socio-demographic, housing asset, basic amenities, support system, and climate stressors. Data analysis. All data were analyzed using SPSS, exploratory factor analysis, and EFA was conducted to uncover latent construct that underlie the observed variables. The extraction methods was principal component analysis with varimax rotation. Interpretation of the study. The variables that loaded significantly on a common factor were grouped and interpreted as representing one latent dimension. Items that cross-loaded or had weak loadings were excluded. Results and discussion. This is the table of the result. Rotated component matrix. That is, 2 factors are there. One is climate and infrastructural stress. Second is social support. The factor interpretation. The first factor, that is climate, infrastructure and stress, includes high climate pressure and low access to basic amenities, indicating a compounded stress dimensions. Social support as a separate factor comprises only social support variable representing the respondents' access to government or community-based support system. The scree plot of extracted components. The scree plot illustrates the eigenvalues associated with each extracted component. The noticeable elbow after the second component indicates that 2 factors explain the majority of the variance in the data. This supports a 2-factor solution derived from the varimax rotated factor analysis corresponding to first factor is climate and infrastructure stress and second is social support. Discussion. The study findings reveals 2 key dimensions affecting the quality of life in the fishing communities. One related to climate and infrastructural stress and the another tied to social support system. The first factor combines high perceived climate threats to poor access to infrastructure, suggesting a double burden for the fishermen. Respondent facing environmental stress such as coastal erosion, pollution often lacks toilets, clean water, and electricity. This reflects a structural vulnerability where ecological and infrastructure risks intersect to compound hardship. This same trend can be observed in the previous coastal resilience research. Next, social support as a distinct domain. The second factor shows that social support mechanisms such as insurance or the government aids provided to the fishermen form a separate but critical dimensions of well-being. The strong loading implies that people clearly distinguish support system from physical infrastructure as they are considering the support system as an extra support to them. Although this variable didn't cross-load with environmental factors, it likely moderates their impact, acting as a protective buffer for the fishermen. The same finding can be supported with other studies in livelihood security and social protection. Implication of the study. These findings suggest two pathways for improving community resilience, mitigating environmental and infrastructural stressors together as they jointly reduce the quality of life, strengthening targeted social group schemes, especially for vulnerable subgroups, that is, women, elderly, and the fishing community. Limitation of the study. This factor analysis was based on only three variables, limiting generalizability. Future studies should include more items per domain to improve factor robustness. But still, this pilot analysis offers a useful framework for future large-scale models. The conclusion of the study. This study examined the major challenges faced by fishing communities in coastal Kerala, focusing on climate-related stress, basic infrastructure access, and social support. Using exploratory factor analysis, two meaningful components were identified: climate and infrastructural stress and social support. The result underscored the importance of addressing both physical and social dimensions of well-being in policy interventions, enhancing the infrastructure such as sanitation and water access, alongside strengthening social protection mechanisms like government aid and insurance, can significantly improve the resilience and quality of life in the vulnerable coastal communities. These are some of the figures I have included to understand how the climate change had affected these fishing community areas. These are my references. Thank you.